Imagine this. It's 1930, and a massive new mill stands gleaming in the Nevada desert, ready to process untold riches from the mountains. Investors have poured their life savings into this venture. The machinery hums to life, and for a few glorious days, dreams of fortune fill the air. Then, someone makes a shocking discovery. There's no gold, not a single speck. The promoters had built an entire mill without checking if there was actually any ore to process. But here's the real question. How could this happen in 1930, when the same location had already fooled fortune seekers 70 years earlier? Welcome to the story of Como, Nevada, a town built on golden promises that somehow kept luring dreamers back, decade after decade, even as the mountain refused to give up its treasure. Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the lost gold legends and gold mining history of this iconic region. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. Our story begins in June 1860, when prospectors combing through Nevada's Pine Nut Mountains stumbled upon gold, real, genuine, glittering gold. Within weeks, over 100 miners descended on the area, staking claims and dreaming of striking it rich. They called their new settlement Palmyra after an ancient Syrian city. A savvy saloon keeper arrived first, because where there are miners, there's always money to be made selling whiskey, and other merchants quickly followed. By 1862, Palmyra had grown into a legitimate town of 400 people, complete with its own post office. But then something happened that would set the pattern for Como's entire existence. Miners discovered new gold deposits in a narrow cave about half a mile east of Palmyra. Unlike the scattered findings around the original camp, these new ledges looked promising. They looked like the real deal. Almost overnight, Palmyra emptied out. Businesses packed up and relocated. A new town was platted at the discovery site, and they gave it a simpler name, Como. Within months, Old Palmyra was a ghost town with nothing left but 3 stubborn saloons and a hotel. Como boomed for the next 2 years. Gold fever gripped the camp, and everyone believed they were sitting on top of the next Comstock lode. There was actual gold being extracted. The question was whether there was enough to justify all the excitement. Enter J.D. Winters, a rancher-turned-mining entrepreneur who decided to put Como's gold to the test. In early 1863, Winters dug tunnels into the mountain and built a small steam-powered mill to process the ore. Steam-driven mills were expensive, sophisticated pieces of equipment. Winters was making a real investment. The mill fired up, the stamps pounded the ore, the machinery processed the rock, and when Winters tallied up the numbers, he discovered something devastating. The gold barely covered his operating costs. After months of work and significant investment, he shut the whole operation down. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of taking this as a sign that Como's gold might not be worth chasing, everyone else seemed to interpret Winters' failure as a minor setback. Maybe he'd picked the wrong spot. Maybe his mill wasn't efficient enough. Maybe the real gold was just a little deeper. Winters himself moved on to become boss of the Yellow Jacket mine on the Comstock, where there actually was gold worth extracting. But Como kept dreaming. This is where our story introduces one of its most colorful characters, Alf Doten, a man who could do just about everything except recognize a losing investment when he saw one. Doten was a physician, a carpenter, and a musician who could play guitar, violin, and flute. He was the kind of frontier Renaissance man who could patch up your wounds in the morning, help build your house in the afternoon, and entertain you with a concert in the evening. But his real talent was promotion. Doten became president of 6 different mining corporations in Como, all promotional ventures designed to attract investors rather than actually extract gold. He understood something fundamental. You could make more money selling shares than digging holes. The corporations issued beautifully engraved stock certificates printed in San Francisco, and agents fanned out across the Comstock region, selling shares to anyone who dreamed of striking it rich. To keep the dream alive, Doten wrote the Como letters, dispatches sent to the Comstock once or twice a week, filled with optimistic news about Como's prospects. He was utterly convinced that Como would develop into a major mining center. The gold was there, he insisted. They just had to keep digging, keep investing, keep believing. Doten kept believing until he went completely broke. The pattern was set. Como had gold, but never quite enough. It had potential, but never quite fulfilled. It had investors, but they never quite got their money back. Despite the questionable returns, Como developed surprising infrastructure for a town built on hope. The business district ranged from rough saloon dives to the Cross Hotel, a genuinely first-class establishment with carpeted rooms, a gentleman's bar, and a second-floor meeting hall where traveling ministers from Gold Hill conducted Sunday services. The town had its own newspaper, the Sentinel, which lasted exactly one spring, 1864, before moving to more prosperous Dayton. Even the newspaper couldn't survive on Como's promises. But Como had other problems beyond questionable gold deposits. The miners needed timber for fuel, construction, mine shafts, and mill operations. They found plenty in the piñon pine forests covering the surrounding plateaus. They cut the trees without much thought, because in their minds, the gold justified everything. The local indigenous people saw things differently. Those piñon forests produced pine nuts, a critical food source for surviving harsh Nevada winters. When miners started clear-cutting the forests, destroying years of food supply, some Native Americans fought back. The conflict was inevitable. Miners needed trees to extract gold that might not exist, while indigenous peoples needed the trees to survive winters that definitely would come. Como also faced political tensions. This was the Civil War era, and Nevada was officially pro-Union. But almost half of Como's citizens were Copperheads, Southern sympathizers in Northern Territory. Before elections, secret meetings were held to figure out who should be allowed to vote. Even politics in Como was contentious. By the end of 1864, Como had been thoroughly prospected. Every ledge had been examined, every promising vein investigated. The gold was there, but in quantities that couldn't sustain a boom town. The merriment that had filled Como's saloons grew fainter. The population dwindled. By early 1865, Como was finished, another ghost town in the Nevada desert, littered with abandoned dreams and empty buildings. Most gold rush towns end there. The boom goes bust, people leave, and the desert reclaims what was briefly civilization. But Como had one more trick up its sleeve. Actually, it had several. In 1879, someone decided to give Como another try. Maybe mining technology had improved. Maybe they'd missed something. This revival lasted until 1881 and actually produced more gold than the original boom. Como got its post office back. People returned. For a few years, it looked like Como might vindicate all those early believers. Then it faded again. In 1902, Como experienced another revival that lasted until 1905. Once again, production exceeded the 1860s boom. Once again, hope flickered in the desert. Once again, Como proved that its gold was real enough to tease, but never quite enough to sustain. These revivals lacked the colorful chaos of the territorial boom years. There were no Alf Dotens writing promotional letters or musicians playing flutes in saloons. The later revivals were business operations, efficient and focused, extracting what gold they could before moving on. They proved that Como did have gold, just never as much as anyone wanted to believe. Which brings us back to 1930 and the question we started with. How could promoters build an entire mill without checking for ore? The answer lies in Como's entire history. For 70 years, Como had been teaching fortune seekers the wrong lesson. Every time it seemed finished, it came back. Every time someone said the gold was gone, someone else found a little more. Como had created a pattern of hope that refused to die. So when promoters in the 1930s proposed building a large mill at Como, investors remembered the revivals of the 1880s and 1900s. They remembered that Como had produced gold, just never when expected. They remembered that doubters had been proven wrong before. They invested. The mill was built, a substantial, expensive operation. The machinery was installed. Everything was ready. And then, after just a few days of operation, someone finally bothered to do what should have been done first. They checked if there was actually any ore to process. There wasn't. The mill shut down immediately. The investors lost everything. Como had delivered its final lesson. Hope is not a mining strategy. Today, Como is ruins, cellars and foundations scattered across the Nevada landscape, silent testimony to a town that existed on promises. Over nearly 80 years, Como taught the same lesson again and again. There was gold in those mountains, just never quite enough. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.